Hi there everybody, my name is Blue Jay. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Today I'm going to teach you how to essentially work with MapGeo and export MapGeo so that way you can start to make maps in the game like this currently one I'm working on, Anima Squad Rift. Alright, so let's get started. So obviously I have what I've already started to work on, but I'm going to show you how to basically just add stuff in so you can export. So to get a lot of your objects and everything already textured in, let's say if you're working with, I don't know, let me just load up one of the maps that I'm going to be taking something from. In this case, I have all of the Anima Squad maps already laid out in my different Maya files. However, you're going to want to import a fresh map geo from Obsidian. If you don't have Obsidian, there's a tutorial on the website to find that and how to grab stuff. In this case, I've already done that, so I'm just going to load up the first of the 4 Anima Squad map geos that are available currently in game. So we have the first map already loaded up. It's loading in right now. Sometimes these take a long time to load up because they are the biggest files that League has to offer. So just be patient. Loading and exporting and all that does take a while. But if it takes longer than 3 minutes, I would be like, okay, yeah, maybe your computer's having issues. So what I'm going to be taking from here is I'm just going to be taking this building and we're going to be putting that onto the map. So obviously there's a lot of stuff. Something very important to note is if you want to know exactly how something in-game is going to look when you're working with MapGeo, make sure you turn on flat lighting up here, lighting, go to flat lighting, and then you go to this one and you select untone map. This lighting basically is one-to-one with the in-game lighting so that you know exactly how something is going to look, especially when you're working with our main file right here. You can see it's dark, so we're going to turn that to flat lighting, untone lighting, and now I know how pretty much everything in game is going to look from this angle. Now, obviously, you can see that a lot of these floors are not in. This is because I just reset my texture files. So what you want to do is go here to Attribute Editor, go to wherever it says your mat is, make sure it's on Lambert, go to Color, Image Name, and you'll notice that this has a text there. That is because it won't show because text files do not show up in Maya. So I want to look for the associated ones. This one is spawn A, so it would be this one right here. Make sure it's really clear because it has the Photoshop icon right there. See, now it's there. Now I would go ahead and do all this on my own time, but just for that purpose, and I will save the scene as, and I'll just overwrite my Anima Squad map. I did this because I recently had the bush here, but I had to put it back because I'm not using the vent thing I'm doing anymore. Anyways, we're gonna go on track. So what we're gonna do is go back to our Anima Squad map now. Just a little bit of texture bug. And so I want this building, right? So what I'm gonna do is you'll see that all these have different pieces. So what I want to do is just copy all of this essentially. And then I will deselect all this stuff. And this is all grouped, so it's going to select all these buildings regardless, just because that's the way they group up in these map geos. That happens a lot with Riot files. They tend to group up a lot of textures together, but that's this scenario, that's fine. So we're just going to go to copy, and it does copy from here, and it will still paste in here, right? A little bit of lag, but that's okay. You see, I have buildings and stuff all to the side. I usually tend to do that just for organization purposes. So I'm going to paste this. Now, something important is when you're moving big groups like this, Maya will crash a lot, so make sure you hit save right away because then it'll keep it in there. So I just like to save every few minutes just for the sake of it. So we grabbed all this stuff. You'll see that it's from afar very big looking. So what we're going to need to do is go in here, and now we're going to have to select all this stuff individually. I don't know why it's doing this, but it's fine. We'll just copy all this. And basically I'll just get rid of all this stuff very slowly. Obviously making sure not to cut out anything that I don't want to be cut out. Ooh. Yeah. Mine can be quite buggy, so just make sure you're doing things very slowly. especially since I'm filming. Normally it doesn't look this crazy. I think it's just because I'm filming it looks a little worse for wear. Alright, so we've gotten pretty much all of that. I'm just gonna get rid of that real quick. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just take and select all of this stuff. All that other grass stuff I don't really need, so I'm just going to ignore that for now. We're going to copy all this and just make sure you can move it around. So see, there's a few pieces missing. That means I didn't select everything. Yeah, all these little parts. Okay, so got that. Okay, it's still a little bit off, so I had still moved it before I started selecting all this stuff. You just got to take things very slow. Oh, yeah, and be careful with hitting the mouse button because it tends to just bug out like that. So, see if we're good now. See, there's still pieces missing. So, for now, and then you just have to reselect it all again. Alright, see, and there we go. Now we're good. This is extra, so I'll just delete that. Alright, so now we got all that. So now we're just going to move this over here. In this instance, this building is going to be used for alcove over here. So I like to tend to go in between default lighting and flat lighting, just because when you go into flat lighting, you can't see the dimension of stuff that doesn't have texture yet. So all this doesn't have texture. So it's hard to see when I have that flat lighting. Even if I go like this, I still can't see it because it's just flat. So I like to do this just... I tend to do the flat lighting once I have the thing in place, just so I can see exactly what it's going to look like, especially when I'm looking at the Summoner's Rift format. It's really helpful that way. So we're just going to place it. I'll probably edit this later, but I'm just going to place this for now, just because the purpose of the tutorial is not showing how to make something perfect. So we're going to place this. And you'll see that we have these two groups now over here on our outliner. So what we want to do is open up this group. You see all these different pieces. This is all the different parts that are making up this structure that we have. So over here you see all the different set Baron, all these different sets. That corresponds with this blue boxes up here. All these are different dragon map, right? So white is just default before dragon's map happens, 2 is infernal, 3 is mountain, 4 is ocean, 5 is cloud, 6 is hextech, 7 is chemtech, 8 is just a miscellaneous layer that I've never really understood, but sometimes they just have pieces to it. So what, in this case, we want this to be viewed at all times, so I'm going to hit all, and see it sets all that there. And then before you merge these two groups together, what you want to do is come up here to the EXPPY button, with this rainbow marker. You're going to go here. My folder where I'm having all my map data in is called map11.wad.client, just because that's what CSLOL associates that with. So I'm going to double click on this, and then you'll see I have an anima.py file here. It doesn't have to be called that. I just like to keep it consistent with my map name just because it's easy to find once I'm in the editor. So basically what you want to do is, if I'm making a fresh one, I would just type anima, and it'll make a file for me. In this case, it already exists, and then it'll say the name of this map. You always want to keep this the same, so that's always putting everything in there. Oh, I don't know if that happened, but it's fine. So that keeps everything associated, and I can close this now since we're done with this. Basically, what that does is, so I have the file here, right? But what that does, to make sure it worked correctly, go into maps, kit pieces, and you'll see that associates. Now I have a folder in here, which normally isn't here, called anima. This is where all of the textures are associated with, and this is where all of your textures are going to link in your Python file. So it's very, very core to keep all of that consistent. So basically what you want to do is, as you're making a map, just make sure when you're doing this every time, keep it in the same Py file name, keep the name of the map the same, just so everything that you need is in the same folder. Obviously, when it comes to ground textures and stuff, they're always going to be in this folder regardless. It's also very important that when you have a material in the link here, it's always a DDS or a text file, because the game won't read PNG or JPEG files, and when you go in the game, it'll just be invisible. So now what I want to do is, I have this all exported into the PI file and all set to a layer. So now what I want to do is I click on, now that I have it all selected, I click on these 4 triangles here, I click and I drag, and now they're all going to be in this folder. Should be, yeah. So now what I want to do is just go click on these 2, and I always like to do this just in case, delete all by history, just because sometimes there are extra materials and stuff that show up, and also just for clearance and stuff. So now I can delete that group, save the scene, just because again I like to do that often. And now that that's all good, what we want to do is before we export our map, we're almost done. You see we have this PI file. This is where all of the textures and everything from this piece lays. So essentially what you want to do is you have this PI file, you want to open up, go to data, maps, and you should have, so in this case we're in the Noxus season, which is using the boba_srs map, as well as these other 2 kinds of maps. They're using 3 different maps right now, so I have to do all this to make sure that the map is showing up on every type of game mode and all that kind of stuff. In this case, boba.srs is for practice tool and for normal games, so for testing purposes, if this is the only map you want to use, that's fine. So in this case, I'm going to open up the materials file here as well. So we have both the anima PI file that we made and this one. In this case, my map name that we gave, remember, we have, when we exported, we did anima, so that anima PI file. So that's going to be that name that we made, which in this case was anima, is going to be associated with this backslash, and you'll see that shows all of the different textures. So here, what we want to do is, nope, not there. That did not work correctly. Oh, I think it's because I selected everything. Oops. I sure did. See, that's why you don't want to do that again, because it'll then do all of the map textures. Alright, there we go. Now it should be fine. Yep. So now I can copy, make sure you copy literally everything. Copy. And you go over to here. This is at the very top. Paste. I paste this near where this default order. So I usually just do this because that's how you keep track of your files. Here, obviously, it's like map pieces base. So just look for something of this nature to paste it in. You'll find it because you'll know because it'll save. So then now I pasted all of this into where that was. Now I can exit out. And then I have this here. You want to open with read open client. Again, if you need to figure out how to install that, there are guides out there, so just find that. So it's saved. You can tell because of the timestamp. I can delete that now. Now we're at the very last step, which is exporting. Gonna copy the map geo that you used, paste, rename that as Riot, and now just gonna double check that I'm recording. All right, yeah, it would have been really embarrassing if I had done all this and hadn't been recording. Export selection, League of Legends.mapgeo. You'll see that there are a lot of options, but you obviously want to select mapgeo. Well, sorry, we're actually doing something wrong. So yeah, make sure you're not selecting just this stuff, right? You want to select everything. So you just click, I just click on this. Export selection, mapgeo. You go back here, so you see that riot.mapgeo. It's really important that you have that because that's how the book of grid leads. So yeah, just make sure you always have a copy. So ignore these 4. I just have that. But yeah, just the right map geo. And then very important, you name it what you're exporting test. I don't know why. I just know that that's the only way it works. Something in the code does that. So it's going to take a minute. It doesn't actually take that long. It just takes a minute about. And you can't click on anything during this process. But I just would sit here and wait for a second. And yep, sorry, I should have said that, but yep, it'll have a pop-up. You'll know it'll work because it'll ask you which version of MapGeo you want to use. It says either version 15 latest here on the left or 13, which is for ARAM. But you want to click on the 15 because we're using this for Summer's Rift. So now it's exported. See, now we have test. You can tell because the kilobytes have increased that obviously something has entered the map sphere. So what you want to do is copy that name, that's what I usually do, and delete the original. In the RAG test, I always like to keep backup of this just in case, I mess up or have something I don't want. So what I want to do is I'll delete both of those, rename my test file to whatever that was. In this case, it's boba_srs because we're in the Noxus season. Noxus! So now it is good to go. So what we're going to do, open up our CSLO manager, not in administrator mode. In this case, I have it called Anima Squad Rift, map11.wad.client. That's why I named it that way. It's right here. So I'm going to click and drag that into here. Again, it'll take a minute because you're loading in a big file change because MapGeo is long. So MapGeo is a long process, but that is it, really. So what you're going to do now, have this load in. Some elevator music. Again, it can take a long time, so just be patient. Once you've exported it and renamed it and all that stuff, you should be good to go. But I'm just going to show you. So now it's done. So now what we want to do, go to desktop, CSLO manager. Now that it's been imported, you'll open it up as administrator. Obviously I have a bunch of other mods enabled, but you only need the Anima Squad Rift one enabled. Then you see waiting for the match to start. Go to play. I always like to just do these in practice tool. In this case, the piece that I added is an alcove, so it doesn't really matter which side I go on. I just prefer doing it this side because the turrets are visually up there. I'm just gonna pick, I don't know, Riven, because why not?
What is broken can be reforged.
Alright, we've loaded in, which means that there has been no bugs and it does work successfully. Obviously this is all stuff, so I know that the piece we added is down here at Alcove. And here it is! I obviously need to adjust the position, the sizing, and everything so that it's not, blocked by fog of war and stuff and it just looks visually nice. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and I hope to wish all of you best luck on your MapGeo journeys. Another thing to note is if your client, I don't know if this is just a me issue, if you're loading in and it gets stuck at 90% don't load, just close out of the game and reload, hit the reconnect button, and it should bring you back in. Sometimes I've noticed that's an issue since the Noxus season came out, so if that happens, just be patient. As long as it doesn't fully crash you like right away, should be fine. Anyways, that's everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best of luck with your MapGeo. Thank you!